Welcome to the Unicorn Funhouse, a podcast of the San Jose State Pride Center, the San Jose State University Pride Center. My name is Jordyn. I'm a student here at JSU.
My name is Lark. I am a lecturer in digital media art and a faculty fellow here at the Pride Center.
And I'm Bonnie, and I'm the director of the Pride Center and the Gender Equity Center.
Woo! And this is our first episode, everyone. So we're super excited. This is our episode called A Tale of Three Unicorns because this trio right here that you're watching, yes, we are unicorns, okay? and we're gonna talk about our origin story, about how we all came together to make this podcast of ours. And so I guess I'll start with my story. For me, identifying as gay, I almost said straight. Who? In what world,
Whoa,
Jordyn?
whoa, hello.
I'm like, where is it?
Today, here at the Pride Center, someone was poking their face inside the door, and I was like, what's going on? Do you want an introduction, or do you want to see what we do here? And then they were just asking, no, I just want to know where the bathroom was. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, it's directly at the end of the hall. I didn't want to say like straight at the end of the hall because,
Go straight from the Queer Center.
Yeah, you don't say that.
Funny how
we
think
but
about these
they
things.
were so confused.
That is funny.
You could have confused them more by saying, go gaily forward.
Right? Hello. That's terrible. Wait, that's a terrible. No. But yeah,
back to you, Jordan.
I know. Sorry. I'm like, what am I thinking? So for me, being a gay Latin American male, growing up, I've always been fascinated with the radio. So it's kind of always been my dream to do something like this. As cheesy and as cliche as that sounds, in high school, my friends would be like, "You're gonna have your own show someday, and it's gonna be, and they would give me these names. But I always loved radio and hearing voices. But I can say that I never heard a voice like mine or like yours or like Bonnie's. So for me, this podcast is more than just my fascination for radio. It's more about us showing or representing for our community. And I think this podcast is going to be awesome because we're going to go into different topics, but that people don't talk about often. And I'm from Gilroy, California, so it's kind of a smaller community over there. And it's more like, I don't know why this is popping in my head, but don't ask, don't tell. It's kind of like we don't, it just wasn't really, no one ever cared to ask me about my sexual identity, but I do have to say I always give credit to my mom and my dad for empowering me, and so that's why I've been able to accept my voice, and I love that I'm here now. I met you two, and that's my little story about this, how I feel about this podcast.
This is your first
Tears.
This is your first year on campus?
This is last year was. Yeah, last semester was my year, and I got to meet Bonnie.
So your first academic year, though.
Right. I think, yeah.
So how did you all meet?
Wait, when did you start?
I started last semester.
In the fall of 2018.
Yeah. So this is your first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Academic year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's almost 9 p.m. here. My brain is fried.
Student brain.
Right, student brain. Hello. But yeah, you want to go next, Lark, and talk about your little background?
My big background.
Your little
big background, right?
Your big unicorn background.
Hello.
Oh my gosh. So, university or life and interest in radio? Both. Okay, maybe.
Who are you?
Both,
Tell
right?
us who you are, Lark.
Who are you, Lark?
We care about you as a unicorn.
Reveal yourself.
First tears, no blush.
Right? All these emotions.
So let's see. My name's Lark. I am a queer white woman who grew up in Orange County, and I'm like I identify as gender fluid, but I also identify as like more femme of center, and I use they them pronouns. I am from Orange County, a very conservative part of Southern California, where, similar to Jordyn, I didn't have a lot of exposure to people that I could really relate to. I did a radio show in college. But I was so shy then about my own voice. So I would just play music. I played a lot of art rock and like noise and experimental music. And when it came time to announce, I just wouldn't say anything much except just like blah, 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 and this is what you listen to, okay? And sometimes I wouldn't even announce the band names, which would got me in trouble. But I was just so shy, you know. I was someone who was very, very shy growing up. Like I would say something in a group of people, and I would blush. You know, I was very hesitant to speak up at all, and that's been something that's shifted a lot in my adult life through a lot of work and gentle nudging out of my comfort zone. So I'm excited to have arrived at this place where we can all sit at the table and share our voices.
Yeah, I grew up in Tika, which is like Central California. Yeah, also very predominantly white, very religious area. So yeah, in the 80s and early 90s. And so yeah, generationally wise we're different because we hit Jordyn's in his 20s, I'm in my 40s, and Lark, you're in your 30s, right? Yeah, so we have a generational differences as well. So like we hit all the decades.
Well, Gen X. I'm
Gen X. You're Gen X. You're Gen Z. No, sorry. You're millennial.
Well, I'm on the cusp.
You're cuspy, right?
Cuspy.
Yeah.
But yes. And then do you identify as Gen Z or millennial?
I don't even.
That would require Jordyn to give up his birth date, and he has not done that yet. Another thing. And he won't give us his birth date. So
press
we can't.
The number 5 if you know my age. No, I'm just kidding.
So here, Jordyn, I'll give you the parameters, and you can tell us what generation you're in, and maybe you're a cusper. But if you say you're a cusper, then we know. Is 95, 97 is like somewhere around there is the cutoff dates for like the transition from millennial to Gen Z.
Okay.
So you can think about it. Yeah. I'll tell my story.
If you don't want to disclose, maybe you could say you're like a Zennial.
Maybe you're a
What, Bonnie? Just say it.
A pannial. Because you're pan.
We'll think of some cute
like all the generations for that. Right. All the generations.
We'll make a flag.
We'll queer it up. We'll queer up your generational makeup.
Right. I'm old enough, okay?
I'm old enough to be here. I can vote.
I'm old enough to be in university. What else, Bonnie?
So I grew up there. I am mixed, so I'm Japanese and Indian. So I identify as genderqueer for my gender, and what that means for me is that I kind of all the genders, kind of probably outside of gender, like about.
Hello.
Well, I'm so excited for our episode about how the different identities that Pokemon carry as far as how people, well, you know.
Well, Pokemon don't really talk,
Lark
though.
I mean, I guess they do talk,
Pokemon, right?
And we're going to have a really awesome
I know, Lark keeps bringing up
episode,
Pokemon at every
really
opportunity.
Awesome
that and astrology. So it's coming, folks. It's coming.
I love Lark. From day one, I love it. You remember?
I love you from day one.
Oh my gosh, it's a love
fest in here, you guys.
Wow.
But Bonnie, is it true that you had been wanting to do this podcast for a while?
Yes. So you two are making my dreams come true. We'll continue with the love fest. I'll join in. How's that? No, but I've always wanted to do a podcast, and it's something that, because I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I thought it'd be great for us to do one through the center, because I think what Jordyn, you were talking about earlier about not really being not hearing your voice on the radio, or not seeing representation in different ways. Like, this is one way that we can do that medium where, like, we have access to the, getting microphones, technology. It's easier now. It's more accessible to put our voices out there than ever before. And so it's a perfect time to do this kind of thing.
Shout out to San Jose State University for this. I mean, really, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for, the equipment.
Right.
Just the effort that we've been doing.
Thanks for funding the Pride Center.
Yeah.
Giving me a budget so I can just spend money on things like this that are great, that are fun.
Do we want to talk about our podcast that we listen to? What we like? I think that would be awesome.
Why do we decide we want to do podcasting? What's inspired our podcasting?
Ooh. a good question.
ideology.
Okay, well, what do you listen to, Jordyn?
Right. For me, like I said earlier, I'm like, we're living in the hardest times, okay? So I need to laugh a lot. So for me, I listen to the Tiger Belly podcast with Bobby Lee and Kalila, his girlfriend. I actually met Bobby Lee 2 weeks ago at the Improv Club. He's really cool. He's really sweet. But yeah, so for me, I love that podcast. It's like my main podcast that I listen to and watch on YouTube, and I'll be laughing all night. My brother's like, "What's going on in there?" I'm like, going crazy in my room, you know. But it's so good. I love laughing. So that's my podcast.
Laughing's good medicine.
Hello, right? What about you, Bonnie?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of tech podcasts because you queer all day. Always want to do social justice stuff at night, or on your commute. You just need a break.
Right?
You need a break. It's like my
little.
form of self care is staying up with the tech community, because that's something that's like what my degrees are in, working with tech and staying up to date. So I listen to the Twit Network, which is This Week in Tech. I listen to a Google podcast from them and an Android podcast from them. I also listen to Adam Savage has his Tested Network, and so he does a few podcasts. Like, he has one podcast in particular where he's the main guest, and then they have other people on. So I also like listening to, he's a maker, and so he likes to bring on makers and talk about the making process. They also really are intentional about making sure that they bring on diverse voices too. So that's also really awesome thing that I really appreciate about that podcast. And I also listen to, because I'm a big video game person. There's some theme music going on in the background.
I'll tell you what that was in a second.
And I also listen to a video game podcast by 3 women that have been doing this podcast for a while, called Ladies of Elite, that you don't often hear women talking about video games. So it's that hearing voices that I don't normally get to hear that kind of represent my experience. That's what I kind of seek out. Yeah, because the tech podcast I listen to also, they make sure to have women voices in a lot of their podcasts, and so I actually only will listen to. I only add podcasts that have diverse voices besides male voices, because I think that's really important.
That's awesome.
Because I don't connect with it. I don't relate to it if I don't hear that.
Hello. Thanks.
Oh yeah, so things that I listen to. Oh, so that noise that you heard was because I was like, well, I'll open up my podcast app and see exactly.
Did your podcast just start playing?
Yeah, it's Democracy Now!, which I listen to every day, at least the headlines in the morning. Great.
Is that
news.
political?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a news podcast by by Amy Goodman.
Quite famous, yeah.
It's very high quality. I listen to 99% Invisible, which is a podcast in the style of, This American Life or Radio Lab, these very highly edited podcasts with a lot of different sources being cut on the table, which is different than what you both listen to, from my understanding and conversations that we've had, which are more unedited, conversational recordings like we're doing here. What else do I listen to? Code Switch on NPR. That's good about race and politics. Come Out Right Now and Politically Reactive. I was mentioning you to both earlier. So I listen to more political, social justice stuff, and also random researchy, historical, cultural things I'm interested in. And I'm a commuter, so I listen to a lot of podcasts or audiobooks, maybe 8 hours a week.
Yeah.
At 1.25 speed.
I'm a 1.3, 1.5 to 6.
Do you have it? I don't have an option for 1.3.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Are you Android? Or?
I'm Android.
Ah.
Yeah. I listen to all about Android.
Right. Okay, so what about our intentions for this podcast?
Yeah. For me personally, my intention is to just get our voices out there, and if you can relate or if you feel what we're saying, then I'm happy with what we're doing.
Was any of the podcasts that we mentioned specifically queer voices that we listen to? Because I know I don't listen to any.
So one of my tech voices used to be, and then she transitioned back to the work world. So I really enjoy listening to her. There's another. I also like to listen to a podcast called Decode Recode, and that's with Kara Swisher, who does a lot of tech interviews with and just kind of like general social but it's usually to deal with tech, and she's queer identified.
Yeah,
but it's harder to find queer voices out there.
I feel like there's not too many from what I've been looking.
This is when we hear the unicorns galloping off in the distance. Like here we come.
The three unicorns. But ultimately, I love how we were talking about giving a voice to people who are not usually heard. When we all three of us sat down and we were talking about what we wanted to accomplish with this podcast, that was something that kept coming up. What about you, Bonnie, for like aspirations for this show? Like, what do you want?
I just want to be able to cover topics and highlight things that students are doing, the students are thinking about, and and also bringing like community voices in so that students can hear like different things that community members are doing and how they're doing it, so that people learn how they can do things and the work that they can do in the world.
Awesome.
Well, I'm really excited about how this podcast relates to identity and intersectionality. And when we came up with the title for it, Unicorn Funhouse, one thing that we were talking about is how a funhouse is like a hall of mirrors where you're seeing yourself reflected back in different shapes and sizes, and like how we're all made up of these multifaceted identities. I'm really excited for the cross-generational connection with students here, with all of us in this room and whoever else we bring in, and and seeing ourselves as, oh my gosh, I'm just like crystal unicorns right now, and I'm seeing like like a unicorn with all these different like rays of rainbow light like reflecting through it, also in a fun house.
Awesome.
I mean, the Funhouse mirrors reminds me of like just like the different angles that people view, like that people view you and that you view yourself, and the different ways that like you can be looking at a mirror like directly, but then other people from other angles see you differently. So it's like these external presentations or perceptions versus your own perception of what you look like, what you see.
Yeah, my dad used to always tell me he would be like, how you perceive yourself isn't how the world or how everyone is gonna perceive you. And I think he meant just like being a good person, being kind all the time. That should be the foundation, But with the unicorn, I also think about how everyone is so special, everyone is so different, everyone is so unique, And so I feel like we need to celebrate that, and that's what this podcast also is to me. The title, Unicorn Funhouse Podcast. It's perception, but it's also being or celebrating your uniqueness and empowering, feeling empowered, that needs to come in. So I think that hopefully if you hear this and if something resonates with you, then I feel like we did our job talking. So that's what the podcast also.
Yeah, I like how you brought up how fun too. It's a fun house, and how we're looking to get at sometimes serious topics, but with a degree of levity,
right?
And using the ways of like bouncing off of things that are more like, I don't know, loosely related to entertainment. It seems to be one thing that we're talking about a lot. Or I'm making gestures with my hands that don't really mean anything at all. Right. But yeah, using humor as a way to get to the stuff.
Cool. So you can find us at Unicorn Funhouse. We're on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
If you have ideas or suggestions for shows, please email us at unicornfunhouse@gmail.com.
Or comment down below. Yeah, we're open. We're listening, just like you listen to us, everyone. Do you want to talk about where we can find each other, or where they can find us?
Yeah, you want to tell us what your handle is?
So I'm on the gram, aka Instagram, for those who don't know. And my handle is at Jordy Michael, so it's JORDI. Wait, it's gonna be down here, right? It's gonna be.
Well, no, but not everyone's watching on YouTube.
Oh,
Right.
so it's JORDIMIICHAEL.
Mm-hmm. And I am at Lark VCR. VCR stands for Virtually Conflicted Reality. It's my art name.
Clever.
Well, it's like virtual reality, but I'm really conflicted in a lot of ways around technology and many things I feel like are a double-edged sword. Okay, so Lark VCR on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm a reticent social media user, but I'm really gonna step up to the unicorn plate. For
Get your unicorn game on.
Yeah, my unicorn game on. Just you wait.
Right. Just you wait.
Shooting rainbows. And you can find me at Bondog3. That's BONDAW3. From that was a track nickname that one of my track buddies gave me. Who was also queer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cute.
Everybody called each other dog back then. So,
back in the day.
back in the 90s, people used "Hey dog."
The dog
Yo,
days.
dog, what's up? Yeah, so it just kind of stuck.
That's funny.
Bondog3.
Bondog
There it
3.
is.
Follow us.
Follow us. Follow us.
We
Watch
wanna
our
talk to
stuff.
Like and subscribe.
You can subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Google Plus is gone, so you can no longer plus one. But you can follow us and give us suggestions, things that you think that we should talk about, ideas of people that we could bring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that will be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo. We're out.
Hi. Oh, you all are so wonderful.